So, are we finishing on a high note or a low note? What do you think, Scott?
Well, we're going to talk about Alita Battle Angel, which I think you'll fill us in on, which is a decidedly mixed note for me. But yes, what do you think? What do you make of it, Drew?
Yeah, it's sort of like a meh note.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's talk about sometimes a filmmaker becomes associated with a particular work, often an adaptation, and they struggle for years, even decades, to bring it to fruition. Such things are often called pet project or labour of love. And then sometimes a filmmaker becomes associated with a project that, while the fans may be fired up, is clearly something that they might fancy doing maybe at some point possibly, and will perhaps noodle around with it a little every few years, usually in between working on the stuff they actually care about. Despite James Cameron's 20-year association with Alita Battle Angel, this film is clearly the latter, and it shows. Based on Yukito Kishiro's 1990s manga, and inexplicably changed the name from the objectively better original translation of Battle Angel Alita, Cameron, I'm glad you agree.
Why? Yeah. Why make that change?
Cameron's script, co-written with Leta Kalogridis, has been handed off to Robert Rodriguez to finally bring this long gestating adaptation to the screen. It's the 26th century, and 300 years after The Fall, that wonderfully nebulous sci-fi shorthand for everything went shit and we don't want to write the backstory. And our action begins in Iron City, based on Panama City, a bustling cyberpunk metropolis whose industries exist to serve the gigantic Zalem, last of the sky cities which hovers above it. Amongst Iron City's residents is Christoph Waltz's Dr. Dyson Ido, cybernetics expert and part-time vacuum cleaner repairman.
Wah, wah.
Yes, I know. This one I will actually give an apology for. But I couldn't get that, I thought, out of my head because of the name. Scavenging one day for parts, Ido discovers the head and partial torso of a cyborg, with an intact, living human brain inside. Well, I say discover, which is really giving Ido considerably more credit than he deserves. This cyborg, this 300-year-old super advanced cyborg, is simply lying on top of a pile of scrap, out in the open with near even a smidgen of dust. 300 years. This is our first inkling that this film does not understand time. This will become a problem. Ido takes the cyborg home, where he just happens to have a fully functioning, perfectly sized cyborg body ready to donate to her that he had made for his dead daughter. He gives the body, and not at all creepily his daughter's name, Alita, to the cyborg, who, on waking, turns out to have an extensive vocabulary, perfect speech, but in that narratively convenient way, no recollection of who she is, nor of oranges or chocolate for some reason. Oh, and also has creepily large eyes, an odd character design conceit that was weird and discomforting in the trailer, and, while attenuated slightly, is still weird and discomforting by the film's conclusion. Events happen quickly to Alita, and in short order she learns that Ido is also a bounty hunter, folks who now do the job of a police force, which hasn't existed, we are told, since before the fall. But 300 years! That outside of the city walls, everything is a wreck and all of the infrastructure was destroyed. But 300 years! Even Puerto Rico, under the administration of that sociopathic orange cretin, would have had its infrastructure fixed before then. And that she's a Martian. And because she's a Martian, and therefore the enemy from the battles that presumably led to the fall, she is to be killed. She also learns that she was a super badass god-level ninja cyborg Martian, not just your regular Martian, and learns to reject, in a teenage angst sort of way, the parental restrictions of Doc Ido, something she can never have consented to live by nor come to resent in the first place because this all literally happens in 2 days. Then there's the boy, who she naturally comes to love in not much more time, and who we, the audience, are seemingly supposed to care about, despite the fact that he makes his living by assaulting cyborgs and stealing their body parts.
And is made out of wood.
Yes.
Going by his performance.
Yes. Also, imagine that sympathy for Mr. Vengeance changed halfway through and made you want to root for the people who stole his kidneys. Alita must survive multiple attempts on her life, directed by a mysterious character called Nova, including via a cyborg roller derby match come Star Wars pod race, for some reason, and Jackie Earle Haley's giant cyborg Grishka, who calls her Little Flea, which is plenty irritating the first time, let alone the 12th. All of these things awaken Alita to her badassedness, and she attempts to reach Zalem, where the answers lie. And by answers, I mean sequel. Because the half-hearted attempts at adding backstory and creating interest left piecemeal and sparingly throughout the film end in a great big, please come and see the next instalment sign.
Yes. Which, spoilers, not happening.
Yes, I doubt it. It made more money than I expected it to. It did better in the global box office than US box office, but I don't see this making a sequel. Which, frankly, it deserves to not have because of the cheek of finishing it like that. Anyway, in world-building terms, Alita is reasonably successful, with its Latin American architecture mixed with cyberpunk elements making for visual interest. And while some of its cyborgs may border on cartoonish, there's definitely some depth in there, with themes of extreme body modification and, to stretch perhaps, what defines humanity. And the nuts and bolts of the world are largely coherent. We can get a reasonable idea of how the world works, just not why, given the complete lack of information about the mysterious Zalem. Sadly, this is often undermined by a lack of understanding of distance to match that of time. While in wide shots the city seems vast, the action suggests it can be traversed in minutes, and that everyone knows where everything and everyone is. Character narrative-wise, though, it's a failure. Certainly I've seen far worse, but really, it's not brilliant. The film's principal antagonist is a particular problem character in the film because it's a character that's not in the film. Nova, as he is called, is absent almost entirely, save a few lines spoken through other characters' mouths, and a flashback of Alita's where another cyborg tells her, Nova's the bad guy, MK. Then he turns up right at the end as a silent Edward Norton in silly glasses, and my only emotion associated with the antagonist at all throughout the film turns out to be, why? Why Ed Norton? Why is Ed Norton there? Why have you wasted Ed Norton? And what ought to be the story's centre, Alita's exploration of what and who she is, and what defines her as a person, is hugely compressed, compounding the film's issue with time, in order to get to the next action set piece. Norton is not alone though, as Jennifer Connelly, Mahershala Ali and Christoph Waltz are all largely squandered, thanks in large part to spectacularly insipid dialogue. 20 years James Cameron's working on the script. 20! In the end, Battle Angel Alita, really, it scans so much better that way around. It frustrates more than anything. It's an interesting world in which, so far, the writers and director have failed to do anything interesting. There is so much potential for exploration here, and almost everything actually compelling is reduced or jettisoned entirely in favour of action sequences and tepid, vapid tween romance. Also, it's the 26th century and the Barbie-style physique seemingly still holds sway even for advanced Martian ninja robots. I will give a nod to Robert Rodriguez though for his surprisingly effective attempt at horror about halfway through the film, when Jai Courtney appears as a cyborg roller derby champion. He got me, he really did. He's only in that one scene I believe, but there could have been more and I was frightened. And that's damn rare. Well played, Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes, Alita Battle Angel joins the short list of science fiction films that aren't good in the normal sense of the word, but have enough ambition that I nonetheless like them, even if their reach exceeds their grasps quite wildly. You know, it's like that, and like David Lynch's Dune and Cloud Atlas and Valerian in the City of 1,000 Planets, or whatever it was. I remember watching this at the cinema back in the day, and it would have been like a couple of weeks before Captain Marvel, and I remember thinking, there's more ideas in the first 10 minutes of Alita Battle Angel than there is in the entirety of Captain Marvel, but there's also more inept execution in the entirety of the film than there is in 10 minutes of Captain Marvel. It's in many ways it's just a squandered opportunity. Overall I liked it just because of the expansiveness of the world, but it does itself so many disfavours, and to be fair, I think actually the action scenes and all the roller derby stuff and all that stuff, it's a bit silly, but I did actually quite like it. It's quite kinetically done. Rodriguez can do action.
I enjoyed the action sequences, and I actually think had James Cameron directed it, they would also have been just as good. I mean, because he's keen to do action sequences. It's all the bits in between.
Yeah.
Which he doesn't seem to care about.
Anything that's not looking at the actual landscape of it, the kind of world that's been realised does look really good, but the people that are in it aren't. I can almost let Waltz and Connolly and Mahershala Ali as well. They almost get away with it just because they're quite good as actors, but really the script's awful.
Yeah,
and
the dialogue in particular, and particularly between the two kids, I guess you'd call them, it's so bad.
Yeah, but Rose Salazar and Keen Johnston, I think his name is. Awful. Just not good. I like the visual designs. It's very strange. It's obviously very deliberately setting itself right in the middle of the Uncanny Valley with Alita's character design, the big eyes and that kind of thing. And it's quite a bold choice. I'm not 100% sure it works, but it kind of always... It was always quite arresting. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it was different. It was like the feature-length version of that old PlayStation 2 advert. But yeah, just a weird way to show it. And... it kind of worked. I'm not sure.
I guess they're going for kind of your traditional kind of anime eyes, which I understand, but she's the only character that has them.
Her? Yes.
Yeah, and it's really odd.
Yeah, and it does suffer, as you say, in the main, because of course, it's been adapted from a serial, and this feels a bit like it's about 3 episodes of the serial mashed together with a cliffhanger for the 4th that you're now never going to get to. It doesn't really tie this well enough together into one film story. It's not structured the way it should be for it to be a compelling film by itself, let alone a film as part of a, no doubt, hope for a series. But yeah, how this adaptation, if indeed it was this adaptation that Cameron has been working on for 20 years, got to this point to be filmed, I don't know, because this feels like it was thrown together as a script in the last a couple of days before shooting it. Yeah. It feels like they just ran the manga through Google Translate and that'll do, close enough. It's mainly the visuals anyway, no one will care, but we do care, and it's not good enough, and in that way it disappoints me. I will still probably keep going back to this film now and again, just because I like the look of it so much, but and I have a soft spot for kind of bold failures of science fiction films, but it's just a bit of a shame. This had real potential to be good in a way that I don't think something like Ghost in the Shell as a film compared to the anime was never going to work. It was just a bad idea. This could have worked. There was enough scope and latitude that you could have done something substantially different here and made it fun, and I spaffed it. It didn't quite land.
This is another thing that, and I think with the level at which television production is nowadays, we're going to say more and more often, is that this feels like it should have been a miniseries.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Like this is exactly the sort of thing Amazon Prime should have funded.
Yeah.
Because they're doing it. I mean, they've got like their Lord of the Rings adaptations come up and stuff, so they're clearly willing to do that sort of thing. Yeah. Netflix obviously will do that sort of thing as well. That it would let it breathe, because it is so compressed. And I'm not joking, that her change of like going like, oh, basically he's my father and I'll obey him at that, oh, I'm teenage rebellion, it literally happens in 2 days. Because the first time she goes out, it is the day after, and I'm thinking, is this just like compressed? Then there's a line of Christoph Waltz's just afterwards. It says, basically I found you yesterday. So no, it's okay. It's just the same day then. Yeah. And you were talking about the James Cameron thing and the having worked on it. It just feels like it was just farted out, the script. Like there's clearly a vision for the world, but not for what anybody's doing in it. Yeah. And it does feel. I do have the feeling that James Cameron saw the manga back at the late 90s, was intrigued and thought maybe this is something I can work on. Then made the mistake of telling someone. Yeah. And that's where it's come from. I really think it's like fans of it's probably anime fans who the people keep asking like, oh, when's James Cameron doing this? You doing this? And then so then you get all the pop culture people at places like Comic Con or wherever else that he's been interviewed or popping up, and they ask about this time because this is a thing that they like, and they've heard that he's associated with it. But it was never a big thing for him. I genuinely believe that. I certainly hope so, because at least that might excuse some of the shoddiness of this. Yes. That it's like, quite fancy that, but no, I'm too busy with my 800 Avatar sequels, or doing things about underwater exploration again. It's like, then, it's like he's got the month or two between a couple of films that he's working on, and he sketches down a few notes and things, and he's like, oh, I could do that, maybe that, and it's like, then he realises that, next film's starting, that goes away in the drawer and doesn't think about it for 5 years.
Yeah.
And it only just keeps going up because he keeps being asked at things. Yeah, and it really shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think I'll return to this. Because I don't, as much as I like how it looks, Scott, I don't think it's got an awful lot more to offer.
No, you're probably right. Yeah.
Whereas I say that I don't like Dune. It's honestly so long since I've seen Dune. I would really have to see it again to see if I still don't like it. That was when I borrowed that DVD from you probably 20 years ago, so almost 20 years. So the time I've seen Dune. But the other films you mentioned in that kind of ilk, I guess I see how it fits in it, but it doesn't compare to something like Cloud Atlas, I think. I think that's got an awful lot more interest. Again, it's something where the reach very much extended past its grasp, but it's it feels more ambitious and there's more of interest in there, and I think it rewards more repeat viewers. I don't think this is much to offer up on a second viewing.
Yeah, both it and Dune are very dense, and I think are films that only really work if you've got the Cliff's Notes guide of the book beside you at the same time, whereas this really doesn't. This hasn't got any real wider scope crammed into it, that just, at the edges that it couldn't get to. It's just like it almost doesn't exist for this film, which is a bit of a shame because it's obviously there. There's plenty of things that this could have gone into if I just skipped over it in seconds. Yeah, it ought to have stuff, because I've not read the manga, but from what I can gather about it, it is more about kind of existential stuff, and it's quite meditative in some ways. Yeah, while still being focused around action and things. Whereas in this, it's not even so much like it's an afterthought. It's barely in there at all. I suppose it's making it more like an afterthought. You can feel that there are little snippets of story in there, like that are meant to get you intrigued, but they're either not successful enough at doing that, or there's so few of them that by the time it gets to the end, you've forgotten they existed. Yeah. And you're just like, why Nova? Why? There's a scene where there's a snippet of her and Alita in her previous life fighting on the moon. Like, well, that's quite cool. Why are they on the moon? What is this battle? What are the stakes of this? And none of that is addressed. So you can't have any interest in it because it tell you a single thing. Yeah, lots of... That's frustrating, but there's ideas that they pulled from the manga and just spaffed away for fractions of seconds in some cases. Yep. And all of that could have been its own film. In a lot of the cases, not even just a few scenes, it could have been its own film. You could have had a whole film about him, Alita just getting rebuilt, slowly discovering that her adoptive father's a bounty hunter, becoming a hunter herself. That's a whole film there, and that's the first plot 30 minutes of this. Everything's just rushed, and it burns through a lot of things that should really have been spending a lot more time exploring, and that's a bit of a shame. When it comes to sort of thinking about recommending it, I can't put my hand on my heart and say that people should watch this film. It's just not overall good enough to do that, but it just, at the same time, I can't help but respect that there is enough work and ideas in there that it's maybe, for the right person, it's worth giving a shot to. Now that if it shows up on streaming, it's worth putting in front of you at that point. But it is just a missed opportunity, and that's a shame. Yeah, it's not a film I would necessarily dissuade anyone from watching, because I didn't dislike it. I certainly found bits enjoyable, which is not to say it's a good film. It's not. And again, the dialogue is so atrocious that I really find it hard to say anything positive about the dialogue anywhere in it. Yeah. Because it's either exposition heavy. Pretty much anything that Christoph Waltz says is exposition. Yes. Really awkwardly done. I mean, the fact it's not completely intolerable is credit to him. Yes. Being the fine actor that he is. But yeah, otherwise it's just the stuff between Alita and the boy whose name he has a name. I don't care what it is, so don't remind me if you have it off the top of your head. Yeah. It's just risible. Yes. It's sub-Twilight, as much as I remember about Twilight, having seen just the first film, but it's certainly of that level anyway. It's awful. But yeah, I say I wouldn't necessarily dissuade people from watching it, because there are some interesting ideas in there, at least in terms of the world. It's visually interesting. Yeah. Which may be a reason to watch it. And this will seem silly, but given today's
typical running times. It's only 2 hours. And I didn't feel the length of that film in particular. It didn't particularly outstay its welcome in that regard. But yeah, there's enough interesting stuff going on in the world that if you stumble across it, you can maybe appreciate it just on that level.
Yeah.
I just think you're going to feel deeply frustrated by the lack of narrative. And the creepy eyes. Creepy eyes.
Yes.